Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, what do you make of the UK consensus in relation to events in the Middle East, given that we're unlikely to ever see that sort of consensus in Northern Ireland on that issue?
Well, I welcome the fact that the main party leaders in the UK, including, of course, the Prime Minister, have been unequivocal in their condemnation of the acts of terrorism carried out by Hamas, and that's what they are. But all of this represents a failure to find a path to peace. And we have learned in Northern Ireland that peace is a precious thing. It is something you have to guard and protect. It's something you have to work for and work at every single day. And I would say to our United Kingdom government and whoever may form that government after an election, we have a responsibility to step up here and to encourage that journey to peace. And we might even draw upon the experience in Northern Ireland, flawed as it is. Nevertheless, it proves that even the most intractable of conflicts can be resolved where there is a will and a way.
What is the state of play in your talks with the UK government? Are we closer to the restoration of power-sharing government in Northern Ireland or further away from it?
Well, I think we're closer than we were, say, 6 months ago, but there are still some gaps that need to be closed in relation to the Windsor Framework. And what we're looking for is for our ability to trade within the UK and its internal market to be protected in law, and that Northern Ireland's place in the UK should be properly restored.
It may be the UK government's responsibility, but isn't Rishi Sunak just being realistic about what's possible in the way Theresa May was realistic, unlike Boris Johnson, who made promises to the DUP he could never deliver?
Well, I think there are many of the things that Boris Johnson said that he could have delivered but failed to. And I think that in terms of the current Prime Minister, I believe he is committed to resolving these issues. And after all, he is the Prime Minister of all of the United Kingdom, so he has a duty to ensure that Northern Ireland's place in the UK is respected. And that's not just a DUP demand, that's at the heart of the Belfast or Good Friday agreements.
And what's at stake? Help people beyond Northern Ireland to understand that.
Well, what is at stake, of course, ultimately is the Good Friday Agreement, because it requires the support of both Unionists and Nationalists, and we want it to work. We want long-term peace and stability in Northern Ireland. My goodness, when you look across the world at what is happening, the dreadful atrocities we're seeing in Israel, for example, that is a failure of politics, a failure to secure a dialogue which can bring about peace. And it is the evil of violence being visited on innocent people. No one wants to go back to that in Northern Ireland, but we need to have a future that is sustainable. We need to ensure that our political institutions are there for the long term and that they have the support and confidence of both Unionists and Nationalists. So that's what's at stake here.
You say the Good Friday Agreement is at stake, but hasn't the DUP's stance in recent years risked the 25 years of progress that we've had here?
Well, actually, the people who put the Good Friday Agreement at risk are the people who drove a border down the Irish Sea. That was not necessary, and it is unacceptable. That drives a cart and a horse through the middle of one of the key principles at the heart of that agreement. I want the agreement to work, but for it to work, David, it has to have the support of Unionists as well as Nationalists.
There is a healthcare crisis, an education crisis, a policing crisis, an environmental crisis. Just look at Lough Neagh. How does boycotting power sharing win friends and influence people?
Well, there's also a constitutional crisis as well, David, so let's not lose sight of that. And one of the reasons why violence in Northern Ireland began in the first place is over the whole question of identity, the constitutional question. And you know, people felt that we'd made real progress in addressing those issues, only to see a protocol that undermined the progress that had been made, that put the Good Friday Agreement at risk. And we've got to deal with that.
Given the lack of breakthrough with this UK government, a government, of course, the DUP kept in power for 2 years, Do you think you'd make more progress with a Labour government? Is Sir Keir Starmer a man you can do business with? Would you strike a confidence and supply deal with him if the circumstances arose?
Well, of course, it was the electorate, not me, who put the Conservatives in power in 2019. And we respect that they're the government of the United Kingdom. And we will do the same if there is a Labour government after the next election. We will work with whoever is in Downing Street in the best interests of Northern Ireland as a whole. And we want to see these issues resolved. That's why I don't want to wait for the next government to come along. I want to try and get an agreement now that resolves the problems with the protocol, that restores Northern Ireland's place within the UK and its internal market, and gets Stormont back up and running. But yes, I've had conversations with Keir Starmer. I've met recently with Hilary Benn, who's the new Shadow Secretary of State. To be honest, I've been impressed by some of the things they have said about the approach they would take. But I would rather get this done. I would rather get agreement. I'd rather see Northern Ireland's place in the UK and its internal market restored now than have to wait another year for that to happen.
Sir Jeffrey Donaldson, thank you very much.